yours. Again, thank you for participating.
Thank you, Mr. VC, and also thank you, Ms. Dimmings, for your leadership in this hour. I know that our theme is, what do we have to lose? That's something that the President, during his campaign, asked the African-American community. What do you have to lose? Why don't you think about voting Republican this time? So I was a part of the group that Mr. Clyburn referred to that went and met with the President last week. Members of the Congressional Black Caucus Executive Committee met with the President, and we went over to the White House to answer the question, what do we have to lose? As my colleagues that have spoken before me mentioned, we believe that we have a lot to lose, and I think that the budget is a reflection of all that we have to lose. As my colleague Val Dimmings said, a budget is a reflection of your values. It's a reflection of where you think taxpayers' money should be spent. And so in the opportunity that I had to speak with the President, I mentioned to him that I was sure that he was aware that in the United States, over 2 million people are incarcerated. In fact, we incarcerate more people in the United States than any other country on the planet. What I told him that he probably wasn't aware of was that this was an issue, a bipartisan, bicameral issue that members of Congress in both houses were looking at, because we've recognized over the years that incarceration is not the solution to communities that are experiencing crime. We told him that there was a trend in Congress to actually reconsider policies that led to over-incarceration. We told him that the Congressional Black Caucus was concerned about messages that we'd heard from him, one that is reflected in his budget, two that was reflected in his New Deal for Black America, where the focus was on law and order. We told him that we were concerned about his proposals to address problems in poor communities, and our chair, Cedric Richmond, specifically pointed out that he was concerned about the way African-American communities were consistently described as riddled by violence and as almost uninhabitable. We told him that we thought he probably wasn't aware that 95% of prisoners return to communities, and that maybe he was not aware that many of these inmates return to certain zip codes. If you have a community in certain zip codes where a number of people have been released from prison without any services, then naturally you are going to have a problem with recidivism. We have people coming out of prison who then find out that they are prohibited from working, that they're ineligible for public benefits, including even a driver's license. In the state of California, we had a program in state prisons where we trained you to be a barber, but then we didn't allow you to have a license if you had been a prisoner. So we had to change state law to change that. We told him that if we don't find ways to reintegrate people into society, that he needed to understand that that was actually a contributing factor to crime and violence in many communities. When we went to the White House, we didn't just go to point out problems, but we also went to talk about solutions. And here is the concern when it comes to the budget. The budget that the President delivered to Congress so far is so general that we don't know whether or not some of the cuts to discretionary spending would include programs like the Second Chance Act. The Second Chance Act is a program that provides funding to states to address and reduce recidivism. The Second Chance Act are programs that work with inmates before they are released to address the root causes of why they offended in the first place. So people in prison, a large percentage, did not graduate high school. So services that are provided by the Second Chance Act include employment services, mental health, substance abuse, housing, education, and family reunification. As we talked about a budget being a reflection of your values, for the values, to me, that would help the African-American community, we need to make sure that the Second Chance Act is fully funded. We won't know what's fully funded in the President's budget until he sends us more details in the month of May. But it's my hope that he listened to the presentations that members of the Congressional Black Caucus made when we had a meeting with him last week, and that when the budget comes out in May, we will see that the Second Chance Act is fully funded. I yield back.